Greetings and thank you for joining us at futuremoneytrends.com. I've got a great guest on the show for us today. We're going to be talking about currencies and rethinking the dollar. Our guest today is Mike from rethinkingthedollar.com. It's a monetary educational website about rethinking the currency that's in your wallet. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Well, Daniel, I appreciate you having me on your show. As you mentioned prior to going on live about having a chance to reconnect within a short period of time again. So I appreciate you having me on your show.
Yeah, I was on your show just a week ago. I'll put the link up for everybody again in case they didn't get a chance to see it. It was a great show. I love how there was call-ins. That was awesome. But I wanted to start off, just browsing through your website and your videos. I had the same moment in my life where I started rethinking the currency. Really a Ron Paul Peter Schiff awakening back in 06, 07. Prior to that, Robert Kiyosaki had touched on it a little bit. When did you have a moment or a year that you're like, you know what, I'm rethinking this entire currency?
Good question. Very good question there. And it actually happens to tie into my former years of when I played basketball professionally. And so it was actually when I started rethinking the dollar was the summer of 2014. And I had just arrived back from Argentina doing some volunteer work down there. And prior to, I lived there in the mid 2000s, and having saw how much the currency had devalued since my last visit there. And so at that point, the ratio was 8-1. And so it was not as of today, it's 24, 25-1. So I've witnessed over the last decade plus, having experienced life down in Argentina, the devaluing of the currency there. And so once I returned in 2014 back to my home here in Michigan, it really got me to pay more attention to how our countries are similar, as well as how our monetary system, how our economies operate. And it's all based upon debt and unbacked fiat currencies. And I realized that, here in the United States of America, apart from us having the current reserve currency, we're no different than Argentina, in my opinion, other than the fact the world at this current point needs the Federal Reserve note as reserves for international trade. But yet down there domestically, no one really utilized the peso other than the Argentinians. And so really got me to rethinking currency in general. And then that led me to a lot of online resources such as Future Money Trends, as well as the Peter Schiffs, the Mike Maloney's. So I started watching a lot of YouTube videos and realized that, hey, there's more to our monetary history / financial education that we were not taught in schools. So it led me to rethinking a lot of things that I'd never learned in school. And also got me to think about, what I actually learned in school, because I'm one that tended to follow the typical path of go to school, get a good job, those type of things. And I added up that from the time I started school in preschool all the way to a college degree, it was approximately about 19,000 hours.
Wow.
And 19,000 hours towards a bachelor's in entrepreneurship / business management, but I never really learned monetary history before. And so once I began learning monetary history, dealing with the coinage acts and things of that nature, really got me to say, hey, more people need to find out about things of this nature. And so, hey, let me start a YouTube channel and see who watches and who tunes in. So that's kind of how I got here today.
One of the biggest things that I've learned in my own journey is that inevitability doesn't equal imminent. And I've also been taught that by Rick Rule. It was one of the things he told me that he had to learn early in life, that inevitability doesn't equal imminent. So 2014, you start rethinking the dollar. Did you think the dollar would have had a major crisis by now?
To be honest with you, I listen. I gather a lot of input from a lot of people in this space, and I try to formulate an opinion based upon that information. And having noticed that the purchasing power of the dollar has been dwindling down for the last 100 years, if you were to look at that purchasing power that comes from the Federal Reserve chart, you would notice that the dollar has been losing purchasing power for the last 100 years. And so I never really thought it would be a day where it would actually go, as I say, sub-zero, below zero, or to hyperinflationary status anytime in the near future, just because there isn't really anything in place that's a viable option at this point. And
Sure.
So I never really thought that it would come to a day where no one would want the dollar. Now we're witnessing how people are de-dollarizing, basically just dwindling themselves off of dollars in their economy. And so from that point there, I see a ongoing trend of more people beginning to really think beyond the Federal Reserve note as a way of doing international trade, with all the things happening out east and with more countries accumulating gold. So I do see a time where the Federal Reserve note will become a thing of the past, but it's just not in the next foreseeable future. I don't see that happening right away.
So not an imminent crisis in your opinion.
Correct, correct. It's still, I think there's still more room to go just because I believe that this next, as they say, monetary restructuring, there needs to be some type of true catalyst to really cause people to dump the dollar. And I believe that once this next recession, or as some people say, we're currently in a recession, once it's unveiled and then the monetary policy that's a response to that, that might be the catalyst to get more people to really begin dumping dollars at a more rapid pace. Just because I believe that the next policies implemented will probably be somewhat like negative interest rates, which will cause depositors as well as savers here to really begin rethinking, as well as like rethinking the idea of lending money to a bank and not receiving any interest or whatnot. Because right now, most people don't realize that by them parking their money in the bank, they're not really receiving anything, but yet they have their little small fees that they pay every now and then just to park money in the bank. So I think the policies that will be implemented after this next recession will open up the eyes of a lot of people to where they'll begin dumping dollars, and that might be the trigger for whatever might come after that. So I still think we have a couple more years for that.
Have you given thought to what comes after the dollar? What comes after the current dollar?
Whew, that is a very good question there. And so what comes after the current dollar now is any man's guess. I don't think there's anyone that can actually give you an exact layout of how things will play out, other than the fact that the domestically here, we will begin to witness what people such as in Argentina and Venezuela, as well as what's happening in Italy right now, people are experiencing a greater cost of survival within their own country because of inflation. And so I see inflation becoming something of what's happening globally now, where we probably reach true double digit, if not even higher inflation rates, to where it becomes very tight for people to survive. And then when that happens, if we get to that point, that's when people will really begin questioning everything they taught. And then you factor in all the financial instruments that's been based upon our monetary system, whether it be the investment vehicles, all the saving vehicles, all those things will be brought into question. And at that point, there will have to be something to reinstate confidence into our economy and our monetary system, especially the treasuries, aka the central bank as well. So at that point, a lot of people say it might be some type of digital coin. One of our past guests, Jim Willie, mentioned about an alternative domestic dollar. And so there's all types of things that's been put out there, but no one knows. I know that it will be something that will more likely play into this whole digital economy that we're approaching, and really been sped up with the introduction of cryptocurrency. So I see it being along the lines of something of that nature.
So when you're rethinking the dollar, you're learning monetary history, you're ultimately going to end up down two roads: the cryptocurrency road, the libertarian road, or let me add another road, the gold road. So the three roads.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts and opinions on each one? Are you a person who thinks that gold should play a pivotal role in somebody's savings, or are you more along the line sets of gold's in the past and we should be focusing on cryptos?
I am a sound money enthusiast to the core. And so having studied history, and so I've actually, in various videos throughout my past couple of years, I've actually dived real deep into understanding the coinage acts and the various acts that have taken place that has removed precious metals from our monetary system. And so I am of the nature that silver is the people's money. And so it was used daily in transactions up until it was removed from our coinage in 1965. And so I believe that it is the true nature of what money should be for the commoners. Now, on an international stage, gold has been that medium of exchange done between governments and whatnot, as well as those that were higher up and had more higher incomes rather. So precious metals in and of itself is sound money, and everything else tends to be a claim towards that. And so I believe that there's room for precious metals in everyone's possession, because right now, it's extremely cheap in comparison to what it will be in terms of paper exchange for it. And then with the invention of this cryptocurrency age within the last decade, I am very skeptical of its origin, but yet I see that it's not going away. And I believe that it is a great opportunity for people to take advantage of opportunities and be able to reap some of the benefits of all this fiat currency that will be flooding into the crypto sector. But at the end of the day, I believe that having precious metals in your possession is the most sound and secure way of actually still retaining some of your purchasing power. Also with the expectation of being able to absorb some of this liquidity that will come after this next, as I mentioned earlier, the monetary policies that will be in place, because all they can do is just print and digitize and monetize debt. So with that being the case, anyone who holds either one of those roads that you mentioned will do well in the end, because they retain they will retain value, I believe.
A lot of people, when they first look at the dollar and the monetary history and the path that we're on, and certainly I looked at it like this. I was like, oh my gosh, the dollar is going to collapse. This is really bad. I don't know if you
Yeah.
can see me because
Yeah, I can.
I'm putting my blinders on. But then when you step back, especially on a day like today, as we do this interview on May 29th, the euro is potentially going to be torn apart with Italy. And then next in line is Spain.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks, by the way. I'm going to Italy. So hopefully it doesn't implode in like the next 2-3 months here. So, but when you look at the big picture, is that what makes you think that, hey, you know what, it's not imminent? Because look, if the euro implodes, man, the dollar, that could give the dollar another 25 years of life, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing, because I was actually looking at some graphs earlier about how every government of some nature is running some type of deficit, to where they're not done with the amount of paper that can be brought into existence to kind of paper over some of the problems that's underway right now. And so already knowing that the EU and the European conglomeration of countries was doomed to fail, just because you have all these independent nations with their own problems in and of itself under one currency is crazy to think that it would work anyway, just because there's so many issues that were never really ironed out. So I believe it was doomed to fail. And so with that being the case, there's still a couple months, years for the EU situation to unravel, with probably leading the way with the pigs. We have Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, Spain, all those nations that are really in trouble on the surface. So it could be a couple years for all that plays out, which would end up allowing people to basically either get out of euros and go into other currencies. And because the Federal Reserve note is the current reserve currency of the world, most people will flood into the dollars, giving it more strength and extending its lifespan a little bit longer. So EU unraveling will create a problem with those that are saving and doing business in the EU area, but yet it might be a benefit for us temporarily, because we couldn't afford to have too much of a stronger currency ourselves. Because what I've realized that in this whole currency war that's underway, everyone's trying to race their currencies to the bottom to give themselves some type of advantage. So if the dollar was to continue to increase in purchasing power or strength on the international scene, it will cause problems for all the emerging markets, like it's doing right now. So there's no way out of this fiasco other than realizing we're reaching our point of debt accumulation for these governments here, to where something has to happen. I'm not sure whether to be, some people say a debt jubilee or some type of monetary reset, whatever that might play out to be, but something has to happen, because we're all saturated with debt. Even the consumers aren't really borrowing as much and spending as much, just because everyone's tapped out, especially on Main Street. So now once it becomes apparent that the governments are tapped out and can't really borrow no more, then the central banks will step in and just begin printing and trying to issue out all types of funny money like they always do. So that's kind of how I see it playing out.
There's always these unknown unknowns and known unknowns. And
Right.
one of them was President Trump. So 4 or 5 years ago, if you would have asked me, or probably you, Trump's
Right.
president, I mean, how many times did he say he was going to run since like the last 25 years? And it never happens.
Right.
I remember even there was like a Reform Party stint, I think in 2000, that it got very serious, or 2004. But anyway, do you have anything or any reasons to have any optimism from the type of change agent that Trump has been, for good or for bad? I think everybody agrees that the guy is really doing things differently, whether it's in Korea or in regards to trying to slap tariffs on China,
Mm-hmm.
where they have been doing this on us for, the last 19 years. So is there anything that you've observed in the new administration that you're rethinking how the currency trajectory could go?
Yes, very good question. I am of the mindset that having President Trump in the White House has done wonders for our nations on many fronts. Primarily for those that, if you happen to follow the alternative media space and you know about all the deep dark secrets that's been in Washington D.C. for the longest. And I believe that so far, just having Trump in there, shaking things up, has really exposed how corrupt and how unjust our current political system really is. And so how I think it's really exposed this whole two-party system of Republican Democrats, how much of a farce that really is, because here we have a man that for years and years, to my knowledge, never really professed to be either one. He more so played the game, donate money to whoever would probably benefit him most in his empire. And so now, him being in D.C., he has to pick a side. So he chose the Republican side or whatnot. And to see how they themselves don't really embrace him, just because he's different, because he doesn't buy into the status quo that I believe if his opponent had received the presidency, then she will probably play into the same narrative that, we can expect. And so there wouldn't have been no change that the people can believe in. So I believe if you look from a grander scheme of things, he's shaking up everything that Obama possibly did that wasn't in the best interest of our country. So all the NAFTA, all these deals that he's willing to redo and to relook at, I think it benefits us in the long term because it removes us from this globalism type of narrative that every president prior to him was pushing for. Every government appeared to be wanting one body of one governing body, one currency. That seemed to be the pathway we were on prior to now. And so I believe with Trump in there, he's taking his time on reevaluating all these deals, which gives us more time, especially. And so it also, I was thinking about the current dealing with Iran and how him removing ourselves from that agreement with Iran without even knowing the details of it, knowing that it was in favor of the EU and that everybody was in favor of it. Now they're all rethinking that. Lets me know that regardless of how it plays out, that buys us some time because more people are now questioning what were we getting out of that anyway? What were the EU getting out of that? So now it just basically makes people rethink a lot of things. So I think it's going to be good for us long term because Trump appears to be different. Now we'll see how it plays out in days ahead.
On our last call, you had Michigan in the background, or Detroit. Did you think that he was going to win Michigan in the 2016 election? And then what's your current thoughts of the vibe amongst fellow people who live in Michigan with Trump? Do you think he's on his way to win Michigan again?
Good question there. And to be honest with you, I really don't focus on or even pay attention to what the vibe on the streets as far as what people's thinking of Trump's are, because I know in the African American community, especially in the city of Detroit, a lot of people probably whether they voted or didn't vote for him are really probably in the closet with their true feelings. And so a lot of people, if they're feeling, he won. So that lets me know that a lot of people turned out for Trump than they probably would admit to. So I'd imagine that based upon how the economy unfolds in the days ahead, for people on Main Street, they may be more inclined to vote again, or they might not. And so most people tend to vote for what benefits them the most right away. And so I think that depending upon now and time for re-election, depending on what happens with our economy, will determine if people feel he did a good job or not. But if you were to ask, your average African American in the city, they'll probably say, they'll give you some words that you wouldn't really want to repeat when it comes to just Trump, just because he's different. And so
there's a lot of peer pressure for everybody, though, not just African Americans, probably especially for African Americans.
Yeah,
there's peer pressure from everybody that, especially before the election. But now it's kind of interesting. Like you recall, before the election, it was like he was going to deport Mexicans by the millions, and blacks and gays were going to have civil rights rolled back. Right. All this stuff, totally opposites happening. And, but there's still peer pressure. Like if you say you're a Trump supporter, you're a racist if you're white. And I can't even imagine what happens if you're African American. But just on that, did you think that he was going to take Michigan, on the streets in Michigan?
No, it surprised me. It surprised me completely, just because once again, he's Trump. So when you say the word Trump, you think about Trump Towers, you think about, all the theatrical things he's done as an entertainer / business owner, mogul, whatever. So to even think Trump will be in the White House, I was very surprised. So the fact that he's there to this day still amazes me, because that shows that people can, if the people do rally enough, then anything is possible. So I believe that, him being there definitely can shake up things, but I didn't foresee it. I wouldn't have been able to predict it. I actually cut the TV off early, went to bed on some, he doesn't have a chance. It's not going to happen. And woke up and he was. So that's how surprised I was.
Well, certainly shocking, and anybody who watched The Apprentice or enjoyed the Trump hotels before the election or before he announced, it's so funny to me that everybody loved this guy, and they'd call him the King of New York. And then, man, the second he announced for president, he was this racist, homophobic. And it's like, if you know anybody from New York, no, I don't care how Republican you are, there are no racist homophobes in New York, especially Manhattan. It's a very diverse group. Everybody's fine. So anyway, but back to the currency. Just a last final question before we let you go.
Yeah.
You've dedicated the website to really educating people. Where's the best place for them to start? if they're just hearing about this, or perhaps they've just learned about your website, what are some good tools for them to educate themselves on monetary history as well as rethinking the currency?
Very good question. Thank you for allowing me to share that. And so what I've done over the last 4 years, I've had a chance to interview a lot of great guests, a lot of people that you've interviewed as well. As you mentioned earlier, Rick Rule and James Turk and John Rubino, a lot of authors, professors, economists. I have a wide viewpoint of people who are sharing their thoughts on, people who are willing to come on a show labeled Rethinking the Dollar to share their thoughts on where they believe the dollar will be currently as well as will be in the future. And so I've actually put all that together on one single page, and it's called Rethinking the Dollar /University. And so my best guess, or my best opportunity to present people with a full range of knowledge, is to give them a variety of viewpoints from other people other than just myself, because I'm not a professional in this industry as far as having an economics degree or actually in the markets directly per se. But I have people who live that lifestyle sharing their thoughts on Rethinking the Dollar. And I believe if you were to watch 2 or 3 of those interviews, you'll be more than convinced that there's something worth rethinking. Now, what you do from that point on is up to you. And then from that point, I have an opportunity. I put together some ebooks as well as a variety of 3D dimensional type of whiteboard presentations that gives further information in a more short, concise sense. And so that's rethinkingthedollar.com /5 reasons is the most recent ebook I put together, giving some highlights on why it's important to hold precious metals before this next recession. And so those are 2 ways to get educated up to speed right real quick.
All right. Well, Mike, with rethinkingthedollar.com, everybody, I'll put those links up for you in the podcast as well as YouTube. Mike, thanks so much for your time. I'd hope to have you on the show again.
Daniel, appreciate you, my friend. Look forward to have you on my show as well. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me.
And I'll meet with you in the next year, either if you're in Texas or if I head north. We'll have to get together.
Definitely. Either way, it will go down. Thank you. Looking forward to it. All right. Have a good one.